Welcome to English Grammar. Today's lesson we'll be discussing the foundations of English composition, part 2. Let's take a real quick look at the Grammarian's Guide. Today we're really going to be discussing classifying and arranging ideas, and then the writing of a thesis statement. Now, before you start thinking, oh Lord, here we go again, you've got to remember that this is part 2. And this is a series, a process of learning everything that we have done up to this point. Now we're taking all those rules and all those grammatical issues that we've been discussing, from the parts of speech to the agreement between subject and verb and all those different things. Now we're getting to the writing process, and it is exactly that. It is a process. This is something that's going to take time, not only just for you to review here, but it's going to take time for you to learn this process so that you can become an effective communicator, both orally and in written communication. This is a process that every single person that aspires to be a good writer, especially in the written language of English, this is a process that we all must learn. And like I said before in previous lessons, we have to come to a place where we don't jump over steps. We need to learn these steps. Now, I recognize that here in the beginning of this, while you're learning this process, this may seem a little bit mundane, a little bit trivial to you, but let me remind you that this process will speed up the more familiar you become with it. And the more you use this process, the better your writing is going to be, the more exciting your writing is going to be, and the more thorough your writing and clear your writing will become. This is a great opportunity for you to start at square one, a fresh slate, and learn how to use everything that we've been talking about here in English grammar so that you can become the most effective, dynamic preacher, teacher, author, business person, anything that you aspire to, that the Lord leads you to. These rules, these processes can help you to become in using all these lessons that we've been studying here in English grammar. Now, backing up just one step, let's go back to brainstorming. When I left you last class, we were talking briefly about clustering, and the topic that I chose for us to discuss in this mock paper, in this fake paper that we would be writing, was objections to TV commercials. Okay, so keeping all that in mind, in the clustering process, TV commercials would be your main topic. And then we started, if you remember correctly, we started writing down. And all these things you would be doing in your writer's journal, which I highly recommend to each and every one of you, that you find a safe place for all of your thoughts. When you begin the process of writing, the pre-writing process isn't so crucial, because this is where you take all these ideas that you got from everywhere and you apply them to paper so that you can begin narrowing down your topic, that you can begin thinking through all the different things. In this particular topic, objections to TV commercials. TV commercials is that center point, okay? It's right there in the middle of your page. You just write it down, and then you begin writing down all these other things that have something to do with TV commercials, whether it be irritating lawsuits against drug companies, their misleading information, dramatic singing commercials, which drive me crazy, because you could be clear across the house sometimes and a commercial comes on and it's just blaring. And you wonder, well, why? Why is all this so important? Well, and these are just ideas that I just came up with at random. And as you're sitting there with your writer's journal, you would come up with several ideas that I've never even thought of, okay? So, I mean, and it's great. this is just an example to you of what clustering might look like. Cereal commercials, cosmetics, detergent, all these things become parts of this overarching topic of objections to TV commercials. And so you might have 60, 70, 80 different thoughts on why TV commercials are objectable. So this is just to give you an idea of what clustering looks like and what you should be doing with it. And so this is where you start getting into the nuts and bolts, the nooks and crannies of your subject, so that you can begin thinking about how you're going to organize a paper. So that was just a review. Okay, so classifying and arranging ideas. Okay, so the next step in the writing process of a composition is to classify and arrange those ideas that you've already gathered on paper. And remember, all of this is being done in some kind of a safe place. A writer's journal is what I call it. I have Word documents on every single writing project I do. And every single writing project I do is organized so that I can go directly to that writing project and I can go to this one. Don't start mixing and mingling your writing projects. You need to have set aside specific places for each one of these processes, because every paper deserves your very best thought, your very best composition, and it all starts with this writing process. So the next step is to arrange the ideas that you have gathered. Okay, so begin by analyzing the information to determine the major ideas. So which now we're going to begin this outlining process, and this is extremely important. We begin organizing by outlining. And I'll show you a little bit about what I'm talking about. Give each major idea a heading. And then you'll be able to group all the other little ideas under those subheadings. You'll be able to put them under those appropriate headings. This is going to help you to break up your paper when you get to the writing process, so you don't forget something that you thought about way back in brainstorming. So you'll be able to see your paper as it's coming together. This is so crucial. Every good writer, every author goes through this process. If you're writing a gigantic book or you're writing a newspaper article, you need to know how to organize your thoughts onto paper, because it's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to talk about it. But if you're going to begin writing about your specific topic, then you need to have an idea of where you're going, because you don't want your composition to become an endless paper that never ends. It's got to have a beginning and it's got to have an ending, and you need to fill the body of your paper with all the information, all these wonderful ideas that you have that you have thought of. And then you need to be able to figure out how to support them, and you need to be able to put them in their appropriate place so that the reader doesn't get bored. Because remember, knowing your audience, knowing those kinds of things and thinking about who might be reading your composition is just as important as the information that you're giving. So let's talk about objections to TV commercials. Okay, this is just my fake topic for the purpose of giving you examples of this writing process. Okay, you might classify your ideas, not mine, but yours, according to major objections to TV advertising. Okay, so think about your major objections that you've come up with in the brainstorming process. And so I'm going to give you 3 major headings that I took from that brainstorming process that I just reviewed us on. And so three things that stood out to me would be why some commercials are insulting, why some commercials are irritating. Remember, we used all these, and then why some commercials are useless. Okay, so these are three things that I felt like would be major objections to TV commercials. okay? And so now underneath each one of these three headings, which will eventually become three main sections or three main parts of your paper of a composition on TV commercials and objections to TV commercials. Now we're going to begin filling in the information, the supporting material that goes with insulting, with irritating, and useless, okay? Now we've got our three major headings, okay? So now we move forward, and let me show you. So under heading number 1, we will see that taking from our brainstorming, meaningless testimonies and singing commercials. Okay, these are just like bullet points. If you were doing a PowerPoint presentation, similar to this one even, you might just do bullet points. And that is the first part of this writing process, this outlining and analyzing. Remember, you're taking all those things from your brainstorming, and now you're trying to regroup them. You're grouping them under the three main headings that we've got, okay? This is not in your introduction, and this is not in your conclusion. This is stuff that's going to be included in your body of your composition. This is the stuff that you're actually going to go out to the library or on the internet or on television, and you're going to begin researching, and you're going to begin dialoguing with. You're going to wrestle with the information that you got, okay? But for the sake of this, so interrupting programming, it interrupts programming too much. That's an irritating thing. Or repetition, or repetitious commercials. Those are irritating. And then again, emphasizing luxuries, cure-all medicines, legal suits, all those kinds of things would be under useless commercials, okay? So these are just bullet points. They're just things to get you thinking about, okay, I took it from my brainstorming page where I had made all those bubbles and I drew lines to the main topic of TV commercials. So now we've got bullet points, and these are just snippets, just little pieces to put them under categories so that you can start seeing how they relate to your main headings, to your major headings. Okay, now the next step is to think about how to arrange those ideas and details. Now, details is the big part. Because, okay, you've got an idea. You've got several ideas underneath those main topics that we were just talking about. But usually this organization becomes obvious as you begin thinking about your topic and the main ideas. Usually, you've already got an idea of now you're writing out your paper. You're giving a basic outline. And all of this is important because you're writing it out in that journal so that as you write, you can refer back to something that is a hard copy of everything that you've been researching on this particular subject. Okay, so really, really important. The organization comes. It usually is very, very easy. Once you start outlining your paper like this, you're going to find that the main ideas naturally flow with subtopics, with those nuggets of ideas that you've been brainstorming. You're going to see how they fit together really, really easily. And that's why I tell you to back up and start building your paper using a method and a process like this. This is super important. This helps everything. It actually makes the composition part really creative and really fun. This is the legwork to every good writing project. It is. And there are no shortcuts in this point. So since background information is often necessary, background information, okay? Like I spoke about in previous classes, you have to know your information. You have to know this subject inside and out. You need to be able to explain the process. If you're a nuclear scientist, which I am not, if you're a nuclear scientist or a nuclear physicist, you better know that topic really well, and you better know why you're writing on that particular thing. If you're a musician, then you need to know what it is that you're speaking about. If you're a preacher, then you need to study that specific part, that specific passage in Scripture, so that you can therefore explain. Because remember, we're doing expository composition, which is to explain and to inform somebody. And you're writing with the purpose of informing somebody of why you think something and what the subject is, and then you're explaining why this is so important. You've got to understand so that you can help the reader to understand. That's the ultimate goal. Everything we do, apart from writing in our own private diaries or journals, okay, a document like that is not necessarily something that somebody else is going to read. But if you're writing either formal or informal, you're going to have to do some background. You got to have background information so that you can help the reader to understand what you're talking about. So you can give them the best information. You can define the technical terms first. And that's all stuff that needs to be done in your journal before you ever get to the writing process. So you fully understand what you're going to be conveying to somebody else, communicating through the English language. It is super important. Okay, so in the example on TV commercials, you would want to organize and proceed from the least to the most important objections. Okay, so in the process of outlining this incredible composition you have in mind, I recognize that this is not your topic, but this is the topic that we're using as the example. You're going to want to organize it from the least important to the most important of objections, so that you finish with a very strong composition. So you finish with your strongest points. The nuts and bolts of your paper, you want to grab their attention, but you want to lead them through in writing why these objections are so important, why TV commercials should be limited, or what the objections are. And this will create a logical flow throughout your composition. It's important that we think about a logical flow, because if you're a spotty writer, somebody that writes about this and writes about this and writes about this, and they have no way to connect with one another, then the reader is not going to be able to follow your thought process as you write. Writing anything requires a logical flow, and you've got to work on that. And that creates clarity. That creates easy readability. I mean, all these things come from the way you logically flow throughout your composition. So, developing a topic outline, which is something we kind of talked about. When you have classified and arranged your ideas, you will then see a developed informal plan. Remember, this is informal, and I say informal because it is super important that you remember that at this point in your writing out an outline, you can change the plan. You can change the order in which the paper is going to be written. You can explore all your outline. You can change it as many times as you want in your notebook, because nothing is hard copy at this point. Nothing is concrete. It is not defined by anybody but you. It is an informal plan or an outline for your expository composition. Okay, so thinking about why commercials are necessary. Okay, this would be like point one. Okay, we're looking at an outline. Okay, so the subtopics to point one, which is why commercials are necessary, then become pay cost of a TV program. Okay, so commercials. Now, you might think, well, that seems awfully positive for somebody that has objections to TV commercials. Well, it is true. This paper would have a argument that is based on why I don't think that TV commercials are a good thing. But at the same time, in writing a composition, you yourself must remove yourself from the conversation. Yes, you're giving information. Yes, you're even setting a tone. You're knowing your audience. You're knowing the information. But in the end, you've got to be able to present the facts of the argument. You've got to be able to present the facts of the information that is out there in a fair and balanced way. It is so important. And so paying the cost of a TV program, while that seems like a positive thing, it also explains that you recognize that commercials are a part of TV programming. It is a part of the use of networking. Okay, and it also sells product. It also sells sponsors products. Okay, they're not just there by mishap. No, each commercial is placed at a specific time, at a specific place in the day. It is there because a sponsor, somebody that has money and has a product, wants to sell it. And so they're targeting specific audiences themselves. So you need to recognize that these are examples of creating a little more detail. Now, again, these are still bullet points. They're not full explanations. These are just bullet point thoughts on why TV commercials are necessary. Okay, so the second one, why some commercials are irritating. Okay, so we're talking about too repetitious. This would be a reason that I would give, and too frequent. Too repetitious meaning the same commercial over and over, while too frequent falls in line with it interrupts your programming. It's just every 5 minutes of a show on your evening television feed, you're just being interrupted constantly by commercials that just don't do anything for you except break up your television programming. So you're just getting into a movie and then all of a sudden here comes a commercial. So these are two examples of why commercials are irritating. Now remember, they're just sentences. They're not sentences. These are just informational bullet points. Okay, so now taking those bullet points, now we're going to create sentence outlines. Okay, so sentence outlines is preferable when you want to communicate to someone else the full meaning of the shorter headings in a topic. Okay, so now we're moving away from bullet points. You've got those down. You've been writing them out, and they're short snippets. This is a little more information about each one of your subtopics that will ultimately point back to your major headings. Okay, so you're now going to explain a little bit more about each one of these little subheadings, these little nuggets of information about a greater topic, a major topic. So now we're writing a full sentence. We're going to write it out so that should I come up to you and ask you, well, why are commercials irritating? Well, then we're going to see some of that. We're going to see how I explain that out. So I write a sentence about it. I will talk about that, and here we go. So why commercials are necessary. Here we go. We're going back to the first major heading. And so now I've written out two sentences that explain my individual topics. Now remembering that sponsors pay was one of the things. And so now I write out a sentence that explains why sponsors payment for a station. Okay, so here we go. The money a sponsor pays to a station to air commercials during a TV program pays for the production cost of that program. And the second one being, it is the commercials, not the program, that sell the sponsor's products. Okay, so you see those are just two snippets. Those are more than just snippets. Those give you a little more information about where we're headed in the paper. And you would then create a second outline, and this is more of a sentence outline, referring back to the bullet point outline that we were just talking about, the topic outline with the subtopics. Now we're creating a second outline based on that first one that we just created with just the bullet points, and we're explaining a little more detail. And that's going to help you because now these become sentences or become something that we can rework and rewrite into an actual composition. So you see now you're doing the real work of organizing your thoughts and arrangement. And at this point you're still in an informal stage, so you can move these points and these subtopics around to better flow in your paper. The second major heading in this paper was that I brought forward was why some commercials are irritating. Okay, so that's your second major heading. Now these two sentences are going to be talking about why commercials are irritating, or why I think commercials are irritating. And so here we go. The constant repetition is irritating. That's simple, but it talks about what I was talking about. I talked about repetition, and I put it into a sentence so I understand what I'm saying. And so if I were to explain this to my friend or to somebody else that has no knowledge about this topic or no knowledge about this particular composition, I could then explain that the constant repetition of commercials is irritating. And in the same way, the too frequent interruption of programs is irritating. Again, talking about the frequency. I use those same words from that bullet point to create this sentence outline. And so this is just to give you a full idea of what we're talking about, why it's so important that we write out these sentences. And you would do this throughout your entire paper. Throughout your entire sentence outline, you would diagram the whole thing. And that way, when you're sitting at your desk, you're either writing it by hand or you're typing it out on your computer, you're then looking at your outline and looking at your paper, and you know exactly where you're headed from the introduction to the body to the conclusion, and it's a beautiful first draft. I mean, this will help you to stay on target, which is so important. So let me review the rules for outlining real quick for you, okay? So first rule in outlining is place the title above the outline. Okay, this may seem a little mundane, but as you have learned in previous classes with me, the title is going to help direct your thought. Okay, you need to create a title that is catchy, that is very insightful, very concise. You don't want it to be a title should not be a full sentence. It should be a couple of words put together that tell you exactly what the composition is going to be about. It is not part of the outline and should not be numbered, okay? This is just to help you to remember what you're writing about. It's a quick title. It just gives you a point of reference. Place a statement of purpose before the main head in the outline. Okay, so this statement right here is going to help you to keep your purpose in mind as you write your composition. This statement of purpose can help you to craft your thesis statement, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. This is very important. This gives you an objective. It gives you direction. All of this is to help you to get to the place where you're writing. Okay, the terms, introduction, body, and conclusion should not be included in the outline. Okay, I know we've been talking a little bit about introduction to the composition, the body of the composition where all the meat and potatoes are, and then the conclusion where we're closing out and reviewing and summarizing and discussing our findings and why they're so vital and what and possibly giving information about what should happen next. None of that is to be included specifically in your outline. They are not the topics. These are just organizational units that you need to keep in mind as you're writing. And then use Roman numerals for main topics. So, like Roman numeral 1 and 2 and 3, etc. Those would be your main topics. Okay? So then underneath one of those main topics, you're going to have subtitle A, and now you got to change it up a little bit so you don't get confused. If everything were in Roman numerals, you might start getting confused. So instead, switch it up a little bit. Use the alphabet. Okay? So under main topic 1, you'll have a subtopic you'll have subtopic A, and you'll have subtopic B. And then if you want to add more information, now remember, the basic paragraph is 3 sentences: a main idea, and then two supporting sentences underneath it. Okay? But in this particular case, if you want to expand on that topic, on that basic paragraph, this is what we're talking about. So your main topic would be your main idea, and then underneath that main idea, you would then have a subtopic A and a subtopic B. And then if you decided to add more information to the subtopic B, this one, then you would go to the regular Roman numerals of 1 and 2, and these would come under this particular subtopic. And then, oh Lord, you find and discover more information on subtopic of B, then you'll go back to A, you'll go back to B, and these will be under subtopic B. So you see, now you're expanding on your ideas. And remember, this is all in outline form. These would be further sentences or bullet point topics that you're going to speak about, and they all relate back to subtopic B, and then they all refer back to the main topic. So as you're outlining your sentence, these would all become sentences underneath your main topic or your main idea. So then underneath the main topic, underneath the subtopic of B, you would then have, then you go to your second main topic. Okay? This would be the second one. So this is why commercials are irritating, okay? Irritating being the main topic. The second topic, then again, you would have subtopic A, or 1 and 2, and then you could have underneath subtopic of 2, then you have an A and a B, and they refer back to this, and then then you go to your third main topic, and etc. And the process just repeats all the way down the page as you're creating your outline. I'm just giving you this information so you'll understand. So, rules for outlining. You need to indent your subtopics so that all letters or numbers of the same kind will come directly under one another in a vertical line. You don't want all of one to be the same. So you have your topic. And then you would have A and B. See how those go? And then over here, you would see more. You would see a whole lot more. You might see 1, and then et cetera, going all the way down your page as you're writing out information that all of it leads back to this major topic. But you've got to organize your thoughts so you see it really quick. Because remember, it's going to be open on your desk while you're writing or typing out your paper. your composition, you're going to be able to look at these points and go, oh, that's right, I was going here, or I was going to talk about this with why commercials are irritating. And so you would then have everything written down, so your thought process goes really quick. By the time you get to the writing of your first draft, you're really throwing everything together and just bringing those outlines to the table and bringing it all into words so that it flows. Begin each topic and subtitle and subtopic with a capital letter. Remember, in English, in the Roman alphabet, there are both uppercase and lowercase, okay? And so forth and so on. Capitals and lowercase letters. And so remember, you're gonna begin everything with capital letters, okay? So that this helps your eye to see this process. In a topic outline, do not follow with periods, okay? So if you're just writing a single word or a bullet point of A, B, C, you might only have one word, irritating. Or useless, okay, in a topic outline. And you'll notice that I don't use periods. Nope, don't use periods. They're not needed. However, in a sentence outline, you definitely need to use a period because you're writing out a complete thought. You're giving a subject, a verb, and an object. And that is part of writing out a full thought. And so yes, and these sentences then can be used in your paper if they're crafted in the right way. If you think they are valid for your paper. And since a topic cannot be divided unless there are at least two parts, a topic must have two subtopics or none at all. Okay? And again, it goes back to the main idea, and then a supporting feature and a supporting feature. These are what I'm talking about. A main idea being the main idea, the first sentence, and a supporting feature and a supporting feature. Well, everything in a subtopic should support your main idea or your major heading. So it either has two parts. You need to have at least two parts underneath the topic, or no subtopics at all. There should not be anything, and it should just be a paragraph with a main idea. Okay? In a topic outline, main topics should be parallel in form. The subtopics under the same topic should be parallel in form. So if you have main topic, let me break it down for you. Main topic and main topic, they should be parallel, okay? But then your information underneath should be over here. So A, B, and then A and B. They should definitely follow just like that. This is showing your form. Now you know that whatever is written here in A and B is really talking about main topic here. And we also know at the same time that A and B here, whatever's written here in your sentence outline or your these things are all talking about your second main topic. So 1 and 2. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about in paper form. This is what it would look like. So let me give you some examples of those things. So the first major heading here would be dangerous commercials. Okay, so why would I think that dangerous commercials, that's your major heading, that's your major topic. And then you have point A, which is create demand for, this is your subtopic. create demand for luxuries. So let's look at this one more time. So underneath dangerous topics, you have dangerous commercials, and then you have create demand for luxuries, dissatisfy family, and then parents in debt. All of these things then refer back to your main topic, which are dangerous commercials. Just showing how this thought process works, how you go from point A to point B to point C to point D. These are all things under your major topic. These are subtopic, subtopic, and subtopic. And all of these things support, remember, it's all about that inverted triangle, which you're going from large scale to lower scale. You're reading down, you're bringing support. You have your main topic here, and now you have to support everything. Everything has to point back to that major topic. For each number or letter in an outline, there must be a separate topic. Never for an example write 1A or A1 in an outline. That's pointless and needless, okay? So we have now come to writing a thesis statement. All right, so the thesis statement is usually included in the introductory section or the introductory paragraph of a composition. Okay, this is the nuts and bolts. This is going to be that one singular statement that tells the reader exactly what this paper is about. And it's done so in such a concise few words that that the reader knows exactly what is going to be outlined in your paper, what is going to be discussed, and you're doing so in as few words as you possibly can. Now, I'm not talking one or two, but this statement doesn't need to be a four-paragraph statement. It simply needs to be one sentence that kind of breaks it all down for you. You can explain your thesis statement in several paragraphs underneath and give more definition, but for the purpose of a thesis statement, it's one sentence that gives the nuts and bolts of your paper, your composition, and it is found in the introductory section or the introductory paragraph of the composition. Using the thesis statement will serve, again, as a helpful guide. Remember, it's guiding your reader. Why do we write? Why do we write anything? Because we hope that when we write something, somebody else will read it and will learn something or gain some new insight, or we can further explore the world of research that is out there. We can take it and internalize it ourselves and put it on paper where we learn something, but that we can share what we've learned with other people. And so the thesis statement is the guide. It tells the reader exactly where you're going in your paper. To develop a thesis statement, start with your topic, okay? And then expand it to create precise statement about what you will write about, okay? Precise statement is so important here. This is the most important part of a thesis statement. Your thesis statement should not be a run-on sentence. It needs to have a exact and precise, clear statement of what it is that you're writing about. Clear. The clearer it is, the clarity of a good written thesis statement will tell your reader exactly what to expect. If it is unclear, then it's likely that the rest of your composition is unclear as well. And you never want to leave your reader wondering what the paper is about, because guess what happens? Guess what I do when I don't understand what a paper is about? I toss it aside. I go on to something else that I can understand, that I can read, that I can think about. If I don't understand the terms or what the paper is about, it does me no good, and I will not use that paper. So make sure the thesis statement is so direct that it can apply only to one paper. If you have several ideas in your thesis statement, it's not clear enough. You need to again take the broad stroke, and this might require editing your own thesis statement, bringing it down from large to a very, very poignant, direct statement, okay? It needs to be very, very exact. Nobody should be trying to read this kind of a thesis statement. That's not good. You want this. You want the nuts and bolts of your thesis statement to be so direct that they know exactly where you're headed. Make your thesis statement so direct that it can only apply to one paper. One paper. You don't want to write a paper that everybody else has written on, or from a perspective that everybody else has written from, or to an audience. You want to be an original. And an original is something that nobody else has done, that nobody else has ever thought about. You want to find your way into a topic, into the discussion about what is being said about this particular case. In this particular case, if you were writing on TV commercials, you would need to know enough about TV commercials and why it's irritating so that you could talk about that one paper. And that one paper would become the authority on why we have objections to TV commercials. Let's look at this real quick. Here is a vague thesis. Way too broad, way too broad. This is up here in the triangle. I mean, this is this area. We don't want that. It doesn't say anything because it's not strong enough. It doesn't tell the reader where we're going. So TV commercials are objectable in many ways. Did you read that? TV commercials are objectable in many ways. What does that say this paper is about? Do you know what the objections are? Do you even know where the writer is going with that? Because objectable, this word right here, is very broad. It's way out there. It's this part, objectable. I mean, goodness, it doesn't say anything to the reader. Now let's look real quick at a strong thesis. This would be the kind of thesis that I would want to read, that I would expect from one of you if you were writing a paper on TV commercials. This is more like what it would look like. Right here is this part of the paper. This is the strong thesis, meaning it tells you exactly what to expect. Is it long? No, it's not. It's just a couple of words, but it tells the reader exactly what's going on in this paper. Although TV commercials are necessary, most of them are irritating, insulting, or dangerous. Look at that. I just took the major topics and put them into my thesis. I used singular words, irritating, insulting, or dangerous, to let the reader know. Now that person knows that while I, the author, agree that commercials are necessary, I have found 3 reasons why they are irritating. I now have found 3 objections to TV commercials, and they're irritating, insulting, or dangerous. It's so clear. People know exactly what they would be reading when it follows. Make your thesis statement so direct that it applies only to one paper. In the next section, we're going to begin discussing the foundations of English composition part 3. And this is going to move us beyond just this outlining process. We're going to begin exploring the next step in the writing process. I look forward to having you back with me, and have a blessed day.